Hi, everyone. Welcome to Spirit World Connections. My name is Donna Johnston, and this is my YouTube channel, Speaker Donna Johnston. As some of you may have noticed, I had a preview up on Sunday of tonight's podcast where we're going to be talking about spiritual challenges. And I had a guest who I had invited, John Ravenwolf of the Lanai Lenape Algonquin clan. He was supposed to be joining us this evening, but due to some unforeseen circumstances, he had to cancel. He has offered to reschedule, so I will meet up with him to figure that out, but I apologize in advance. But that's Spirit in Action. We're talking about challenges, and as you know, I've shared with some of you, it's really difficult for me to do this podcast in an open forum and live and, all this in the spotlight, so to speak. But when I stepped back from that situation and I looked at it, I had to say to myself, well, that is truly Spirit in action, and Spirit saying to me, this show's on you. It's on you, and you've got to deal with this and you've got to face it. So here I am. And again, I apologize about that with John, but perhaps we can reschedule in the future. After last week's podcast, I received some responses from people about the content you're talking about my childhood. And I had some really heartfelt responses. And so I just want to thank those who reached out to me. I appreciate your kind words and your support. It really touched my heart. So thank you. So tonight we're going to be talking about spiritual challenges. And we've kind of touched on this already when we've talked about societal influences and how those things affect us, and how fear is a really predominant force that causes us to separate from our spirit or to disconnect from our spirit. But tonight I want to talk about challenges that sometimes spirit gives to us, to challenge us to see if we're going to accept that challenge and if we're going to move through it. And I have shared in previous podcasts about a bad accident that I had in 2020. And that was definitely a spiritual challenge. And if you think about it, right, I was going to see Gianni, who was my Apache mentor, and I was going to see him for a healing ceremony. So in the indigenous culture, they do healing ceremonies. It's similar to Reiki. For those of you who are familiar with Reiki, it's hand over the body, healing and using energy. But in the indigenous culture, every clan has a different form of healing ceremonies. But I was going to see Gianni for a healing to help me. And, when I got to his house, I had a bad accident, fell down the stairs, had a near-death experience, badly injured my leg, and subsequently was hospitalized twice to have two emergency surgeries to save my leg. But think of the irony in that. I'm going to see him for a healing, and I have a near-death experience and almost die, right? That's a spiritual challenge. And when Gianni said to me that day, you need to listen to what I'm saying to you about your life and the path you're on. That was a spiritual challenge from Spirit. Is she going to hear this, hear the message, and embrace it and do what she needs to do? And it took me a few years to get out of the house that I was living in. My son was finishing up college, and I was preparing him to move out. But those 2 years that I had to stay in the house were extremely challenging and hard to stay connected spiritually because of all the things that were happening, not only with my health and with the PTSD that I was experiencing, but also with issues within the house. And when I tell you this house was like a little something not right there, it was really something not right. But when I found the house I'm living in now, Spirit was leading me here, and I had to follow that. If I had stayed behind, I knew there would be bad consequences. I just knew that. But Spirit challenges us on our spiritual path, and it's important that we understand that. And sometimes we will accept that challenge, and sometimes we don't. Last year, I met someone whose energy was very strong, and from the moment I met the person, Spirit started talking to me. You need to give them a hug and tell them that whatever they're going through, everything's going to be okay. Just hug them, and not just hug them, but hold them and tell them that it's going to be okay. Well, I don't know how many people would feel comfortable doing that with a stranger. It was very challenging for me. And as soon as I touched that person, I could feel a lot of emotion coming from them, and most importantly, profound sadness. In fact, after I met them, I went out and sat on my back deck and I cried. And I had to ask myself, is this about me or is this about the person I just met? And it was really about the person that I just met. And over the course of about a week, I had a lot of interactions with this person, and Spirit was constantly relaying messages to me and telling me to say things to this person. And, you know, when you're a spiritual person and you've been judged by those outside forces your whole life in society who tell you it's bad and tell you it's evil, and you really don't know someone, they're a complete stranger, are they going to be open to it, right? And I allowed my own kind of fear and my own little trepidations about it to hold me back. Um, but it was a major challenge for me. And because Spirit was so present, um, I allowed myself to step back from it. I did not embrace the challenge. However, in the aftermath of it, I had spoken to Gianni about it. I said, Gianni, and I met this person, and this is what happened. And Gianni said, well, maybe that was just a test from the spirit world to see if you were ready to go out in public or do things more openly with people and to be more transparent about who you are. So, spirit will test you. Spirit will definitely test you on your spiritual path throughout your life. As long as you're open to it and embracing it, you will be tested and you'll be challenged from the spirit world. It's very difficult to walk between two worlds. And when I say that, what I mean is we're still here in a physical body, we still have a mind, we still have free will, we also have a spirit, right? And when we're spiritually connected and we're able to connect to the spirit world, we are walking into worlds. We're here in the physical and we're here in the spiritual realm. And I joke with my friends and say it's really hard to be me sometimes, but and I mean that. But it is challenging to be a spiritual person. When I was training under the Navajo medicine man, he used to talk a lot about how he would be called from the spirit world while he was in the middle of doing something, whether it was work, whether he was driving, cutting a tree down, whatever. He would be summoned by the spirit world, whether it was because someone needed help crossing over because they were dying and passing over, the spirit needed help, or because spirit needed him in some other capacity. So there was a time when I was with him and he pulled his vehicle over, said, you got to give me a minute, you got to give me a minute. And he stopped and he was just quiet, and then he was like, okay, let's go. And so those types of challenges will come on your path if you're open to your spiritual side and open to the spirit world. A lot of people get tested in a lot of different ways. And, for those of you who are new to opening yourself up to your spiritual side, it's going to be very foreign to you. And it's important that we recognize what's different between the mind and the spirit. And I meet a lot of people, with my profession, what I do for a living. And I've often heard from people, they are looking for a soulmate. And they'll meet someone and there will be an instant attraction and they feel like there's something there. And this is the person that's meant to be on their path, but it doesn't work out. Or they have an instant attraction and they develop a relationship, but it's tumultuous, or it falls apart, or there's domestic violence, or something else happens that shakes the relationship up. And then they come back to me and say, I don't understand. I thought they were my soulmate. The problem with that is if you have unhealed parts of yourself, those unhealed parts of ourselves draw in people who are attracted to those unhealed parts of ourselves and who have something similar with it. Let's see if I can give you an example. So as an example, growing up as in an abusive environment where my needs were not met and there was a lot of neglect, It was hard for me to be in a healthy relationship when I was young. Why? Because I would pull in partners who were violent, who were aggressive, who were temperamental, who were moody, unstable, unreliable. And that's not to say they all were, but there was definitely a common theme there. And I had a partner who was very much my love, and we shared a very strong bond together, and he died of cancer. And since that time, I've been single, but dating since then has been a big challenge, big challenge. Um, and Gianni said to me one day, Donna, your picker is broken. Just stop. Your picker is broken. When it comes to men, your picker is broken. And you need to ask Spirit to bring someone to you, someone who will love you and someone who will accept you the way you are. Just put it out to the spirit world and let it be. And so I did. So my broken picker got me into a lot of trouble. And a lot of us have a broken picker, if you think about it. A lot of us have a broken picker. So what happens with that is a lot of that attraction is the attraction to what's familiar, what feels familiar, right? And we misconstrue that with a spiritual connection, and it is not the same. And that's why I was saying to you last week, if you have unhealed parts of yourself, it's really important that you work on bringing peace to whatever's happened to you in the past, and that you find some peace and healing so that you can move on with your life with balance and with the healing in place. And if you're single and you're looking for a partner, I can't say that to you strongly enough. Heal yourself first, because otherwise you're just going to attract a wound mate who may appear as a coyote. And by that, I mean a trickster. You're going to think, oh, this is my soulmate. This is a great thing. When in reality, they're actually a wound mate. So Spirit challenges us that way. And it's important to understand the mind connection is different than the spiritual connection. I've had a lot of challenges in my life. If you just think back on my childhood, that was a major, major challenge. And when I used to see the man praying over my bed at night and I would be terrified, that could have shut me off spiritually. It didn't, but that's because of my grandmother. But another child being raised, in a non-intuitive environment, what might have been terrified and shut down to that. And I often talk to people who have bad experiences, or something happened within their spiritual experiences that scared them or frightened them, and that also shut them down. So that your challenge, if that has happened to you, is going to be working through that fear and that negative, what you interpreted as a negative experience. A lot of challenges will come up as you move through your spiritual path. And it's just important that you try to stay as connected as you can. You're still here in the physical, so life happens. We have emergencies like John Ravenwolf had this evening. We have unexpected life events. We have stressors. We have family. We have obligations pushing and pulling us in different directions. And your spirit needs you too. So it's just important that you take time for that, to take time to sit with yourself, to take time to pray or meditate, however you connect with your higher power, to honor your spirit, and to stay open. Does anybody have any questions? Oh, Maureen wrote, she's learned about herself through the tricksters. Oh, yes, yes, that's very true. Yeah. And they can be very deceptive. They can be very deceptive. Tricksters are what Gianni calls coyotes. Yeah, they can be very deceptive. And it can be very confusing too. I don't know if you experience that, Maureen, but sometimes when someone comes onto our path who's not being genuine with us or is presenting in a different way, it can be very confusing. Thank you for sharing that, Maureen. And speaking of confusion, I want to talk a little bit about that subject too. When you're open spiritually and you're able to start sensing energy from people, there's a lot of confusion in our society. A lot of people are confused. Why are they confused? Because a lot of them are disconnected from their spirit, honestly. But confusion for people can be really hard to interpret. Um, and with the person I was talking about that I met last year, they definitely had a lot of confusion, and I could feel that. I could feel that. And sometimes someone else's confusion can become your confusion because you're picking up on their energy. The mind is a powerful, powerful tool. It's a powerful tool. Um, but confusion creates confusion in one person can create confusion in another person if you're open to that vibe and open to their energy. So you have to be mindful of that too. If you're picking up on someone, you're having an interaction with someone, and you're starting to get confused or you're feeling a little funny about something, it's not you, it's them. And it's important to understand the difference. Any other thoughts or questions? You know, someone asked me the other day about ancestral trauma, and the challenges that come with that. And so when we're talking about ancestral trauma, we're talking about intergenerational trauma, and that can be a major challenge for people. Um, the indigenous culture has suffered a lot of oppression and forced assimilation at the hands of the European settlers and the U.S. government, and a lot of their culture has been eliminated. Quite frankly, there are many many tribes that existed before the European settlers arrived, and now I think we're down to 543 federally recognized clans. There are more clans, but they don't have federal recognition. But intergenerational trauma can make it really hard for people to connect to their spirit just based upon the trauma. But then it goes back to the importance of healing. And how do you heal that? When you have to invest the time working on yourself, recognizing the patterns of the intergenerational trauma, and making efforts to change that behavior and the patterns of behavior that are associated with the trauma. Are there any other questions or comments? Oh, someone wrote, sometimes I realize that anxiety I feel isn't really mine. Yes, yes, anxiety too. Yes, yes, that's very true. Sometimes anxiety, depression can be another one. Some people will say to me, wow, I just left this conversation and I'm wiped out. I feel exhausted. Why? Because you're picking up on the energy from people. I have never been a touchy feely, huggy person. One, based upon my trauma. Two, based upon the fact that I can sense things from people when I touch them. So, and I have my close friend of mine is always like, Cookie, give me a hug. And I'm like, but and it's not her, it's me. But when you touch someone, you can pick up a lot from them if you're open to it. Or if someone's energy is really heavy, you can walk away from that conversation feeling kind of bogged down, maybe feeling depleted of your own energy. In the indigenous culture, we call those kind of people medicine stealers or energy stealers because they can just rob you of your energy because they're so depleted themselves. Um, On that subject, too, I think it's important to share with you if you're seeking out someone to do energy work on you, make sure you have the time to get to know them first. And the reason why I say that is there are a lot of people out there who take a Reiki course and then claim to be a Reiki master 3 weeks later, or claim to have another title or certificate in something, energy healing, angel work, whatever it may be. But if they have unhealed parts of themselves and they lay their hands on you, you're going to pick up on it. That there's energy transference. That energy can be transferred. That goes for anybody who's touching you. I'm very particular about who cuts my hair. I'm very particular about who does my skincare. I have a master esthetician who's wonderful and very spiritual. Um, Reiki master. I have a wonderful Reiki master that I work with. She's an angel on earth. I'll tell you more about her someday. Um, but you have to be very, very careful. And I've had, people who say they were Reiki trained do Reiki on me, and I've walked out of there feeling horrible. And I've had to go see Gianni to have it corrected. So you do have to be really, really mindful when when you're allowing someone to touch you, when you're allowing them into your energy. You really want to know who they are, what their background is. You want to know a little bit about them before you go to that depth of having them actually touch you, particularly with energy work, Reiki, hands over the body healing, any type of energy work at all. The other struggle with that, with people who are out there calling themselves healers, is if they are abusing substances. So you could have a healer who's an alcoholic and not know it. He or she may not smell like alcohol, but it doesn't mean that they're not abusing alcohol. Or someone who has an addiction to substances of any kind, what that does is it lowers their vibrational energy. And when their vibrational energy is lowered, they're not working from the light. They're not working from spirit. They're working from a darker realm of existence in the spirit world. I do want to talk to you about that next week, the different levels of the spirit world. Their vibrational energy shifts as a result of the substance abuse, right? So they're open to more negative energy. They're not vibrating fully on the higher levels. It is not good for have someone work on you. For that matter, they shouldn't even, honestly, in my opinion, call themselves a healer because they haven't healed themselves. But there's a lot of unhealed people out there who call themselves healers, and what they're doing is transferring that energy, that lower vibrational energy, into people, and it can really throw you off. It can make you feel really awful. So you have to be really careful with that. Are there any questions on that? Know your healer. I can't say that to you strongly enough. Know who's touching your skin, know who's cutting your hair, know about them, because that energy will transfer. Any other thoughts or questions on that? Even medical professionals, that's a great point, Maureen. Thank you for pointing that out. Yes, even your medical professionals, you want to know them. If someone's doing surgery on you, right? How can you ask a doctor about that? But you got to trust your instinct on that. If something doesn't feel right when you're working with someone in the medical profession, you have to trust that. And I always say to people, if you get a bad vibe about something, don't walk away, run. Don't walk away, run. Get away from it. It's a very good point. Thank you for sharing that, Maureen. Any other thoughts or questions? And you could be talking to a Reiki master or someone who does angel healing or energy work, and you can ask them, do you abuse substances? That doesn't mean they'll be honest with you. But I want you to know that if you go to see a healer and you walk out of there feeling horrible, it was probably the healer, not something it's bringing up in you. And energy work, as I've learned when I was training under the Navajo medicine man, I had a lot of energy work done with him. It can bring up your own trauma. So, but that feels differently than the transference that you're going to get from someone else. Because the energy work, when you're doing energy work on people, you are helping them heal, and helping them work through their life traumas and things that have happened to them. And I will share with you a pretty unique experience when I was training under the Navajo medicine man. I had had a problem with my knees my entire life. No surprise to those of you who were with me last week that, my mom never got any medical attention for it. And I used to cry at night because my knees would hurt so badly. And well into my 30s before they figured out that my kneecaps were off center. And by the time, I received medical attention for it, I had lost over 70% of the cartilage in both of my knees. And they had said back then, when I was in my early 30s, when they did the surgery to correct and to reposition the kneecaps, that I would probably need a knee replacement by the time I was 50. So when I was training under the Navajo medicine man, and he did traditional Navajo ceremonial healings, very, very involved and very powerful. And after, I want to say, I had 3 or 4 ceremonial healings with him, he said to me, your knees are healed. You'll never have a problem again with your knees. If you think you have a problem with your knees, it's in your head. But whatever was wrong with your knees has been taken. And I can honestly tell you that I don't have pain in my knees anymore, and I haven't since that day. So it's fascinating. The indigenous culture is so fascinating in terms of how they can help people heal so organically, yet our society is so closed down to it. So sad because we're missing out on so much. Any other thoughts or questions? And if you've never experienced a healing by an indigenous shaman, you're missing out, folks. You are missing out. It is an incredible, incredible experience. Any other thoughts on this subject? How do you find a shaman? Well, that's a really good question. That's a great question. Thank you for asking that. That depends on where you live. The indigenous culture, the indigenous people keep to themselves, and you need to understand why. And that's because of their history here, since the arrival of the European settlers. I was very fortunate when I came across the Navajo medicine man, which was purely by chance. It was an advertisement on TV. He was on a show, and that's how I found him. He was participating on a show on television. Um, and then I met Gianni through another friend of mine who's indigenous. If you know anybody who is indigenous, start there. That's what I would suggest. Start there. The clans, the indigenous clans, are very protective of their spiritual ways because of all of the oppression, genocide, the mass genocide against the indigenous people, and because of all of their trauma that they've endured. So they tend to keep it very private, very quiet. Gianni, that I trained under, he does energy work, but he used to, but he's not doing that so much anymore. But if you know someone within the culture or within the who is indigenous, you could start there and ask. That's a great question, and that's a hard one. That's a really, really hard one. Because I can't say, go to this neighborhood and find somebody, right? The Navajo people are known for sand art ceremonies, and if you want to read up on that, it's pretty fascinating. I think I shared with you in one of my podcasts I had a friend who used to live near the Navajo reservation, and the Navajos would come off the reservation if they learned of someone having cancer, and they would take them back to the reservation and do sandar ceremonies for the person and cure them of cancer. That's true. It's a true story. Um, and I think it also depends on where you live. So if you live near um, a federally recognized tribe, you might be able to find a shaman there if they're willing to speak to you. A lot of them will not acknowledge it. A lot of them will not acknowledge it. But there are also people out there who do energy work, such as the woman who does, who's my Reiki master. She is an angel on earth. She truly is. She's not indigenous. So someone doesn't have to be indigenous in order to be a good healer. But you do want to make sure who you're working with is authentic and genuine. Any other thoughts or questions? A shaman who is truly a shaman will be self-monitoring too, to know when they are able to do healing ceremonies and when they're not. As a, someone who's been trained in shamanism, I can do energy work on people. But after the accident, I had to take a step back from it because I had to heal myself. If you can't be fully present for the person who's on the table in front of you, then you should not be doing the energy work. Um, I have a friend who I trained also who how to do energy work, and she's the same way. I'm not in the right space, I won't do it. That goes back to the integrity and being honest and being genuine in your communication with people, because you don't want to harm someone. You don't want to harm anybody. And a healer who is true to themselves and true to you will not do you any harm. Any other thoughts or questions? Is John rescheduled? Not yet. He had an unforeseen emergency, so he joined us late. John Ravenwolf was supposed to join us tonight, but he had an unforeseen emergency. He has offered to reschedule, but we've not come up with a date yet. I'm not sure that Spirit wants that yet because, like I said at the beginning, I feel like Spirit's telling me this is my baby, right? I got to do this, and I was kind of looking forward to him being here. I got to be honest with you because it's going to take a little pressure off of me. And Spirit was like, yeah, we're not having it that way. We're not having it that way. So when Spirit tells me I can invite John back, I will definitely invite John back. I'd love to have him here. And John and I are very similar on the spiritual sense. So I think we would have some really interesting discussions. Any other thoughts or questions, folks? And what I'd like to know is anybody who's tuning in right now, would you be interested if I did a podcast where I'm just doing readings for people? Maureen says yes in capital letters. How about anybody else out there who's tuning in? Would you be interested in a podcast where I'm just doing readings for people? I'm certainly open to doing that. In fact, I can even open it up tonight if anybody has any questions about a spirit or a deceased family member. If you have any questions or comments, you can write it in the comment tab and I can respond to it. So I'm thinking that I will be doing that live. Maybe in the next week or two, I can do a live podcast where I will do readings for people. There will not be an hour reading for one person. Typically, I do a reading. It's usually at least an hour because there's so much information that comes through. These will be kind of mini readings, so to speak, maybe 15, 20 minutes, like what I did last week for Kristen when she was on the show. But we can certainly do that. And I can do some sort of call in. I'll figure that part out too. Still new to the technology, folks. Still trying to figure this all out. Any other thoughts or questions from anyone? Also thinking in future podcasts, we're going to do a guided meditation and I want to start helping you get in touch with your spirit, how to connect with your spirit, how to be open to yourself spiritually. And we could do that with a guided meditation and some drumming. So that's going to be a future podcast as well. And before we wrap up, I just want to show you some of my spiritual artwork. So when I was talking to you about the person that I met last year, I started a painting. And I'll tell you how I came into painting. I have never taken a painting class in my life. My joke has always been I can only draw stick people. But I felt called to do this prior to my accident, leading up to my accident, maybe about 2 or 3 months beforehand. And I spoke to Gianni, and Gianni said, Donna, just buy some watercolors and start painting. Just do it. Just follow it. Just do it. I said, but I don't know how to paint. I've never painted. Donna, just do it. And so I started doing it. And with spiritual paintings, what happens is I can connect with spirit, and I start picking up details of someone's spirit, and then I paint it. So this one here, I hope you can see it. This is from the person that I met last year. This is their spirit. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. I'm trying to trace this. I'm not very good at this. I'm trying to trace it. That is their spirit. And if you remember what I talked about, your spirit kind of has a teardrop shape. There it is. And I had made an accident, and I said, I had said something by mistake when I was doing that podcast. I said, think of it like a teardrop or maybe an hourglass. And spirit afterwards, like, it's not an hourglass. It's more like a pod. Tell them it's more like a pod. So it's kind of more like a pod if you think of your spirit. And there's a stem that comes up through along your base of your spine. And that's where your spirit travels in and out of your body. And this is just one painting of someone's spirit. They had a very warm energy to them, very, very beautiful, incredible spirit. A lot of trauma, a lot of pain, a lot of sadness, profound sadness. And this up here represents a shoulder injury that they had. You can see the red coming from it, shows you the pain. There's also a lot of sadness is tied to whatever happened because that injury holds a lot of emotional baggage as well as the physical pain. And everybody's spirit looks different. So if you think your spirit may not look like this one, may look different. But this is what I saw when I sat down to paint. And then that's all I got from it because spirit said it's the person's story to tell. That's all that spirit would show me. They said that there would be more to tell from the person if they decided to share their life with me. And this one was one I did a long time ago. Sometimes I will see, this is an owl. And sometimes I do paintings that are meant for people who I haven't met yet. And this is for someone I have not met yet. But this is an owl. There was a lot going on in their lives, a lot of heartache, headaches, a lot of trauma and pain, but also a lot of light and love around them. It's another one. This is one of my favorites, and I have this up. I think it's on my Facebook page. This is a woman. She has a lot of spiritual energy to her. She's actually a spirit guide. You can see the light that surrounds her, the love within her, and her energy is just beautiful and brilliant. She's amazing. It's one of my favorites. This is another one. That's actually, there's a person behind this. I can't do this very well. It's a person behind this. That's actually their face. They didn't want to show their face. This is how they showed this. This was a spirit who came through to me. They definitely have an indigenous feel to them. You can tell by the colors, the lines, the markings. But this was an indigenous spirit who showed themselves to me, and allowed me to paint them without seeing their face. A lot of times they won't show you their faces. That's not uncommon. This one was for somebody who went through a lot of loss. It says loves losses, a lot of pain, a lot of heartache. But above that is a lot of healing that's coming through, a lot of healing energy and positive vibes around them. This is also another one. You can see the eye there. Again, wrong side eye here. Somehow I'm going to get this right. Eye here. There's actually a face, almost like a moon shape here. And the flowers. This is someone who's very connected to the moon, to the sun, to the stars, has a very deep spiritual connection. But they've also had a lot of downward things happen to them in their lives. A lot of downward things have happened. This was done for someone that I know personally. And when I start to paint, sometimes I don't know who it's coming through for. But this is someone that I knew, and I have shared it with her. She has black curly hair like that, and some very spiritual. And this was about her life path, her turning her back on things that were no longer serving her purpose. This on her back represents her medicine and her spirit as well. Very beautiful person. This one you'll be able to understand. In the writing, it says, "Where are you?" This is your spirit calling you home. Remember I say to you, your spirit's waiting for you to come home. This is the one where your spirit's calling you home. All the different lines around it represent different things. So it's this energy, the flow of energy, the vibrational source. You can see the face up in the corner too. They're sad that you're not connecting. I do like this one. This one came out much differently than I ever knew it would be. It says captured hearts on it. Down here, see it? Captured hearts. And this was about relationship, someone in a relationship where they felt like their heart was captured and they couldn't get free. That represents the sword, the weight of it, the magnitude of their heartache and pain. And last but not least, these are the three sisters. Three women who came through. There's actually another one down here, but they didn't show themselves fully, so I call it the three sisters. And these are three women who came through to me in spirit. And this is how the spiritual paintings work. So if you're interested in a spiritual painting, you'll have an idea of what it looks like. I just go into spirit and I paint. And whatever comes through tells me a story about your spirit, those who are with you in the spirit world, energy around you. I can get into really deep stuff with spiritual artwork. Does anybody have any questions? Someone's asked me, can I please have a reading? What would you like to know? Superconscious creator, what would you like to know? Maureen, you wrote, so glad you brought up drawing. I had the urge to buy a sketch pad, charcoal markers, but haven't done anything because I can't draw a straight line. Thanks for sharing your beautiful artwork. Maureen, I didn't know how to paint, and I did it. And I mean, it just comes through organically. So you just have to link to spirit and just let your hand go, and it'll take you all sorts of places. And it may not make sense initially, but it will. Super conscious creators, I want to know if I'm heading down the right career path at this time. Hmm. Just give me a moment. Spirit wants me to ask you, why do you doubt yourself? Why do you doubt yourself? That's what Spirit's asking me to ask you. Why do you doubt yourself? Because I feel like sometimes there's some confusion there that sets in for you, and you feel maybe pulled in different directions. Does that make sense to you? She said yes, and that is a great question. Yeah, because I feel like you're getting up here with it rather than just kind of trusting that natural lead. I don't. But Spirit keeps saying the same thing. Ask her why does she doubt herself? Why do you question yourself? I think it's important for you to let go of the confusion, and to just kind of trust yourself to lead yourself forward. There's definitely, I just feel like you kind of get pushed and pulled in different directions. Does that make sense to you? And I think there's other people telling you should be doing something else too. I do feel like there's some influence. I don't know if that's family, friends, people you're close to, coworkers. It's a pattern. She said it's a pattern I'm working with now. It's at my core. Oh, okay. So you're talking about doing core, some deeper work. That's pretty cool though that you can acknowledge that and know that. Okay. But I also feel like there are people who try to influence you. Is that correct? Or maybe contribute to some of the confusion. I'm not sure if you're still with me or not. Um, oh, here we go. Okay. So she says, just myself. I have very few family members here with me, and I haven't met my soul family as of yet. Okay. Okay. Um, hmm. Do you have friends who influence you? So I do feel like there's definitely outside influences. That could be just societal too, but I feel like there are people who maybe give you a little push one way or another, or make suggestions, or maybe just contribute to the confusion. She said, I had a past life session, and what came up was an old monk. I'm going to put my reading glasses on for this. An old monk Templar lifetime, and that guardian role is very much a core wound. I'm in actively dissolving this lifetime. Oh, so you're doing work on past life ties as well. That's fascinating. That's fascinating. Good for you, though, for doing that. That takes a lot of patience and deep inner work, really connecting with your soul on a much deeper level. So kudos to you for that. Seriously. Um, I'm going to caution you to just be aware of outside influences and how they can impact you and create confusion. But I think the path you're on is right for you, and I think deep down you know that. But you have to trust yourself to lead it forward. Do you have any other questions? Or does anybody else out there have any questions? And I think, I want to thank you for bringing that subject up, because past life, there is such a thing as past life carryover. And that'll be a great subject too for another day, past life carryovers. Um, because if you believe in past lives, then we've all have wounds from some past lives. Sometimes we're born with scars that we had from past lives, or with other physical ailments that we had in past lives. Okay. She says, no friends really, but I watch content and that may influence me at times. Okay. Okay. Thank you for sharing that. And I appreciate you coming forward tonight and asking. Stay in the light, and continue to do your core work. That's amazing. So I big thumbs up to you. Seriously, big thumbs up. A lot of respect for you for doing that. That takes a lot of digging and a lot of soul searching. It's really amazing. Do you have any other questions for me? Or does anyone else out there have any questions for me? Always found it fascinating that some people don't believe in past lives, or that we're just here. Oh, you're so welcome. Please come back. I'd love to have you participate when I do live readings. I'm going to be doing that sometime soon in the near future. I appreciate you being here tonight. Stay in the light. Any other questions or comments? Before I wrap up, I do want to say to you, when I spoke last week about Gianni, I forgot to tell you about his website and his Facebook page. So you can find Gianni on Facebook and Instagram. His name is Gianni Crow, Crow. And he also has a website called GianniCrow.com. Gianni is not doing spiritual mentoring anymore. He's moved on to making beautiful custom made jewelry and artwork. And he's an amazing artist. He's an amazing artist. He has sold artwork throughout the world. But if you go to his website, he does make custom made jewelry. And he also sells his paintings, which are really pretty amazing. And if you're on Facebook and you follow him on Facebook, sometimes he does Facebook Live. Sometimes he puts up some of his spiritual writing. He's an incredibly good guy and a great healer. And super conscious creator. I'm guessing it's not all that common to be doing this deep of work from what you're saying. No, it isn't. It is not. And I had spoken about that in one of the podcasts, that so many people are walking around without even an awareness of their spirit, not to mention getting into past lives and the past life carryover and cutting those old karmic ties so you can be freer, right? And to move on. Yeah, absolutely not. And I think I really appreciate you being here tonight and bringing this all up. It's great conversation, a great subject to talk about even further in the future. Any other comments or questions? At some point, I've got to figure out how to do the live stuff with people calling in. I'm working on that. Technology's not my strong suit. But I'd love to open this up to do readings for people one night. So before we wrap up, if you're interested in learning more about my spiritual services, you can see my website, speakerdonnajohnston.com. I offer spiritual coaching, which is similar to spiritual counseling. I also offer, I do energy work, so spiritual healings, hand-on healing. And I do readings, spiritual readings, and the spiritual paintings as well. And I want to end this with this painting. Where are you? Gotta get this right yet. Where are you? Where are you? Where is your spirit in the center of all existence? Where are you? Your spirit is waiting for you to come home. Come home to your spirit. It will never mislead you. It will never take you down the wrong path. Get connected, and stay in the light. All right? Thank you for joining me this evening. I appreciate all the comments and the questions, and I honor you. I honor your spirits. So stay true to yourself, to your spirit, and to your core, and stay in the light. And again, stay connected. And have a beautiful evening, everybody. And thank you again for being here. I will see you next week at 7 p.m.